Hello, everybody. My name is Brybear, and today I thought I would run you guys through my plus 20 Maisara Caverns run and give you kind of a rundown of what I was thinking while I was doing this key in order to help you guys out with your runs in the future. Some of this stuff is going to be bear specific, most of it is not. So, if you are another tank that's not a bear, you will still get a lot of useful information out of this video, but obviously it'll be most helpful for the bears. Now, we'll start off by taking a look at my talents. You can see them on screen here. I'll leave a code in the description as well. Furthermore, here we have the gear that I was running. Your secondary stats don't matter very much here, but I do think that the Gloom Trinket from the Dragon's Boss is very helpful in this run, and I'll point out where. Alright guys, let's get started. Alright, so already we're off to one of the most important parts of starting your key, which is that pre-incarn. It's going to help us with survivability while gathering, with that enhanced frenzied regen, the enhanced iron first, as well as the extra HP. And it's going to let us store 2 empowered mauls for later. I'll go over that. Our first priority here is we just want damage on all these mobs. That way our friends can build resources without dying. You'll see here I'm going to go into this pack and pock trinket. It helps our survivability while grouping as well as snap aggro. Now you may be tempted to wild charge this mob, but you don't want to, or else you're going to get meleeed a million times in a row. Now you'll see that I've paused here. You can also see with the arrows that I still have that Wild Guardians on cooldown, meaning I haven't pressed it yet. And I still have those 2 empowered maul casts from my pre-incarn, which means that in this incarn window with my beam and my potion, I'm going to be able to get 4 empowered ravages here. Now we do want to try to bait these onto ravages rather than mauls or raises, but if you're sitting there and it's been a couple globals and you can't get one, feel free to spend it. I don't think it's worth overspending on Iron Fur to get there, but you'll see that if I don't have a ravage, I'll try to spend some on Iron Fur to try to wait for a ravage for those 4 empowered ones here. All right, continuing here. You'll see there we go, there's the lust, there's the beam, there's the potion. See, that's 1, now 2, now I press my Wild Guardians, 3, and 4. Perfect. And you can see we've ascended to the top of the meters here. And now we're just going to do our rotation here of thrashing, mauling, and using our damage spenders here, keeping up somewhere between 1 to 4 stacks of Iron Fur. Around 4 to 5 is where you armor cap out, so you don't necessarily really ever want to go more than that. I could have survived on less, but again, I was initially building up a lot of Iron Fur there, just so that I could be spending my empowered mauls on those ravages. My team is pinging that I'm going up here. I don't know if this is the most efficient way. It is kind of a lot of travel time, but I just don't like a lot of the stuff in the middle. At this key level, the masks start to one-shot your friends unless they press a button, and I just don't want to make them have to do that. So I've opted for a simpler and safer route that puts more damage on me rather than my teammates. Now here, it's a tank's instinct, and DPS want you to gather fast, but these mobs kind of hurt. So I'm gathering slowly to make sure that I don't die, and to make sure that I have requisite aggro on these things. Now, this pull is not very complicated here. We're just fighting this one elephant and some stuff in here. The reason why you don't want to pull this full hut is just because a lot of these mobs in here aren't very efficient. There's packs on either side of the room here, so it's kind of a large effort to group, and each of those packs has a headhunter in it, which means that those are very dangerous mobs for your teammates, and if you pull 2 of them at once, you're liable to have them both target the same person and kill them instantly. Now here, you'll see that I'm kind of in a scary position here, but I'm not going to incarn because I know I need this for the next pull. What I'm basically trying to do here, and you can see that I blew away those mobs, is I'm just trying to buy time for my next button. Trying to buy time for my Frenzied, so that I can press Frenzied to buy time for my Barkskin. Barkskin is something you want to be pressing early and often. It's very, very powerful in the build that I linked. It's got a 40% damage reduction with a basically 50% uptime. You press it, you get it for 14 seconds, and then it goes on cooldown for 20. So you can basically have it up half the time, and that's going to carry you through a lot of the key. Alright, so now we're just finishing up these packs here. We want to grab this prisoner here, as well as the soup. That gives us 3% leech and 3% avoidance for us and the whole party. Again, normally in a situation like this I would be chaining, but because we need the soup here, it's not really worth it. So grab the soup, we'll grab the prisoner. We're going to grab these 2 prisoners downstairs here, and then we're going to go into our next pack. This pull is going to be kind of big. I do make a mistake coming up here. We'll talk about in a second. We always want to roar for gathering. Again, Barkskin while gathering as well. Helps us here. The reason I take this angle here is because I don't want the Soul Eater to run towards me the other way, because he stops and casts pretty fast into this pack, and we want him as far up, as close to these things as possible. You'll see he stops back there, and that's going to kind of give us some trouble. Now, the mistake that I made is I probably should have just Moonfired this Hexer pack up here and let my team kind of help me gather it. By walking up, I pulled the Berserker, which pulled the Headhunter, which I don't want in this pull. And you'll see that here in a second, my Demon Hunter is going to actually die for that. He gets hit by a Headhunter, arrow, and one Eagle Punch, and it basically one-shots him. That's going to make this pull take longer. This is kind of where we lost most of our effort. Or, sorry, lost most of our time, I should say, rather. But again, it's okay. This pull goes okay. All things considered. This is a very efficient pull. It's, like 10% of your dungeon or something like that. It is a little bit scary because there's, these bears. They don't do a lot, but they do stack a damage taken debuff on you. It's 10% per stack. So if you don't watch to reset those when they get a little bit scary, it can cause you to fall over. The Soul Eater is kind of your prio target in this pack. It's the biggest health. It does the most damage. Again, because of the deaths here and, our lack of good stomps, stuff gets pushed around. And these mobs, again, have some jumping to them as well. A more efficient version of this pull would have been one where they stayed more grouped. But because of the mistakes that were made with the, pulling that extra pack, and some of our stops needing to be less optimal, there's more pushes. This stuff does get a little bit spread out. Our teammates back here, so we're going to be looking to see that after we survive this pull here, that we rebuff them. Again, we don't want to send Incarn here, even though it might be tempting to, as we're scared, just because, again, it's going to be a waste, essentially. Same principles apply. We were just buying time for our next button. Use Frenzied to buy time for Barkskin. Barkskin to buy time for your next Frenzied. Use that to heal. Frenzied is going to be a very powerful button for you. It gives you max HP. It heals you. Very powerful button. Certain builds would also give you shield. Now again, here, normally the pull I would do is the 3 mobs up there that I don't pull in the previous pull because they got pulled just one. So this is going to end up being a little bit of a smaller pull. This isn't also a really good pull. It's not an optimal pull either. The percentage is kind of low for a pull that you want in Maisara. However, you'll see in a second, the pack that I want to go to is going to be kind of in the middle of the room for reasons. And this is kind of the best way to do that without there being some weird pathing issues. So this is really more of a pathing pull. I am able to make the pull a little bit better by grabbing those 3 mobs. I know I'm going to want those anyways. And so they can either go into this pull if something like, what happened and this pull ends up being a little bit small, or they can go into the start of the next pull. We have a DK, so he's able to easily grip that Headhunter in. You might not want to try this if you don't have something like a DK in your group. Again, for survivability here, you'll see that I'm just kind of doing these basics again. We're rotating Barkskin. We're rotating Frenzied Regen. You don't really want to rely too much on survival instincts because of the long cooldown. It's not something that's going to be able to easily fit into your rotation of defensives. So you kind of want it in moments that aren't reoccurring throughout the pull. They're individually heavy moments here. Now I'm going to pull this pack as a chain. That way my DPS don't lose uptime and they can still gain resources. My DDH really likes it when he's in combat a lot because he can maintain his meta. Now I'm pulling it over here just for LOS purposes. There was no casters left. The Headhunter was already dead, so you don't necessarily really need to do that. But I like to build muscle memory on what I always want to be doing. I never like to do things differently if I can avoid it, right? And then there's that mask pack as well that you saw walk past. I didn't pull that. Sometimes I might pull this into this pull. I like to try to pull it onto boss. It ends up being kind of a mistake. Not a big deal. You'll see a little bit here later. As far as our rotation goes, we're really just maintaining the same thing. 1 to 2 stacks of Iron Fur. We are very strong in Incarn, so we don't really need a lot more than that. Plus this pack doesn't hurt that bad. Getting our kicks, doing our damage. We want to make sure we're keeping Thrash and Mangle on cooldown, using our damage spender when we can, and maintaining the minimum Iron Furs we need to live. Again, you'll see here, same principle. We have 2 Berserkers left. I'm going to start starting my next pull in the boss. I pull these bears. I want to pull those masks, but I think that, with the way the padding works, I'm going to get those hexers if I try. So even though I would normally pull those into boss for more funnel, I decided to opt out just because I don't want to risk the pulling of the hexers here. So we're going to go straight into boss here. You'll see that we don't have lust because we've kind of opted to do a route that pulls lust at the beginning. When I first started making routes, I was of the opinion that, the stuff at the beginning was actually easier and you should pull as much at the beginning as possible. But as key levels have got higher, the majority of your count comes from these big mobs, those big purple nameplated mobs. And the ones at the beginning are going to be very dangerous. The masks will one-shot your teammates. The elephants will interrupt you, and they'll give you some damage to your tank. And the soul eaters are probably the least bad in my opinion, but they're still kind of nasty. I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward through the rest of this boss here. You guys know how this works. It's not very interesting. Typically things you want to look out for here in this boss is you want to be defensiving the flanking strikes. The upfront hit isn't that bad, but it does leave kind of a nasty dot. You'll see there what I'm doing with the circles is that when the bird boss casts its big circle, you kind of want to move just outside of it there. And the reason for that is because when that cast is done, he shoots out all those little circles. And where the big circle was, where that was left behind, none of the little ones are going to go there. So that's always going to be a safe area. So you tank him just outside the big circle goes off, then you move back inside for safety. All right, now that we are done with the boss, back to the fun stuff, the pulls. All right, so on this pull here, there's a couple ways you could do this. We have Lust, so you could opt for a much bigger pull if you wanted to. You'll see there's a Gnarled in here upcoming. You could pull this. The Gnarledens aren't very dangerous. However, because we're also pulling the mini-boss has kind of the suck mechanic, and then the Gnarleden puts a big damage event on the ground. And sometimes it can be kind of dangerous if those two overlap. So I just kind of opt not to. You can kind of just very easily walk around, pull a bunch of this stuff here that's around. You kind of want to limit how many Tormented Spirits you cast. Those are kind of really dangerous. They put a very heavy dot on your teammates if their cast goes off. So again, we're just doing a very fun, nice blaster pull here. Just slamming on this prio target here. You do want to make sure you're always slamming the prio target. It's important that this thing dies fast. It's going to take the longest to kill if you don't. And also it's what your DPS are going to be hitting on. So you're less likely to lose aggro if you are hitting the correct target as well. Rotation is going to be very simple. Thrash, mangle, raise, mangle, thrash, raise, etc. Again, maintaining the minimum amount of iron furs we need here. As a side note, I guess while I'm thinking about it, a common mistake people make a lot when I look at people's logs is in combat they are spamming Moonfire, either because they're just not really comfortable with what to do, they think they need to spread it manually to everything, or whatever other reason, right? You want to make sure that you're basically limiting your Moonfires only to your pulls and about nothing else. Now here you see that I pinged, I'm going here around the corner just because I want my team to LOS over here. They don't really listen to me because they hate me, but that's okay. We're LOSing kind of that big soul caster here around the corner. Now this may seem scary. It's two of these big, elite purple mobs here, but neither of these guys really do anything. So this ends up being a pretty safe pull. Helps us get some cooldowns back. Now you'll see these casting Soulstorms here. Soulstorms can kind of be an annoying cast, but there is a way to defeat it. You'll see there that I did it there. I messed it up here. Want to be careful not to pull those mobs back there, but the way that you kind of beat the Soulstorms cast is you'll see that he casts directly in front of him and directly behind him. So you'll see here that as it's coming, I move off to the left there, and then I want to pull the mobs the way that I just moved. And that should allow us to safely kind of escape the tornado range. Again, sometimes you get hit by it. It's not that big a deal if you do. Sometimes you need to go back for stuff like that, whatever. Because this guy kind of comes in late, he does like a bunch of random stuff that makes him move still. I'm just going to pull him and chain him into the next pack here. And we're just kind of going to clear the rest of this room here. An important thing to note at when you are planning your routes for Maisara Caverns is that it may seem tempting to pull a lot of the Grim Skirmishers. They kind of look like mobs that don't do anything, that are typically good fodder for your pulls. Kind of like these reanimated warriors, right? They just melee your tank. However, those shields that they have that explode when you break them end up being kind of crazy damage on hierarchies, And if your team's blasting and they pop all of them at once, it's going to kill everybody. So this route tries to avoid as much of them as I can. I obviously pull them when they're required to, when they're in other packs. Or you'll see one where I pull out on the boss later, but there's a reason for that. We'll get there. And again, we're just applying the same principles that we did in the last pack. Soulstorm comes out. You want to move to the left, and then you pull away. Another big thing that's important when you have these bound defenders in here is that they cast these shields that prevent all damage being taken from that direction, and they cast it at where the tank is. So you want to try to face the defender shield kind of into a wall where your team is less likely to already be, so that they can hit the pack. And then you want to move behind that shield because you want the mobs to be, again, on the other side of the shield, not in front where, the mobs can't take damage or where stuff is being blocked. And then again, very simply, we're just going to clear these reanimated warriors when they, do their death cast. I did that one a little bit early there. Oopsies. Right. And then you see here, we're going to path this way. The pack that you see I just skipped to my right, you can definitely pull if you want to. I used to pull it with that defender. If you want to take out something else somewhere. Just the way my route ended up developing, I didn't need to. Again, the reason we go down the side rather than the stairs is we want to skip those skirmishers. Skirmishers bad. I think I probably didn't actually group this optimally. I think if I think about it again, I would rather pull this defender and these warriors and then go back to the gnarled in. And again here, this is something you don't normally see in a lot of routes. You don't typically in a lot of dungeons want to pull two big purple guys. But again, neither of these really do anything that's that scary or dangerous. So it's okay to pull them together. And it actually makes it for a very, very efficient route when you can do stuff like this. That's what makes Myers actually one of my favorite dungeons. And again, same principles here, right? Dodging the soul storms, moving stuff out of these big slams. We don't want these bats here. They get pulled. Sometimes DDHs do some weird, stuff. Their beams, hit super vertically or whatever. I don't know. Something Blizzard, small indie dev. And again here, you're going to get hit by a lot of tornadoes in this pool. The Gnarled does a tank buster that slows you. But you can see, I get hit by tornadoes, I get hit by the slam, but I have enough defensives up where it's just not really a big deal. You just want to make sure you have something rolling if that does happen to you, like an SI or a Bark Scan or Incarn, right? Again, hit by a tornado, I'm too slow, whatever, no big deal. Knocks me out of the Gnarled slam anyways, yay. And again, these packs look a little bit cringe. They definitely are. But cringe is much better than dangerous. And then again, same principles, right? We're chaining. This isn't the best spot to chain, unfortunately. You'd like to be mounted during this part, but, what are you going to do? Those bats got pulled. Now here we're kind of improvising some route stuff on the fly because of the bats that get pulled. You'll see it bites me a little bit in the butt later, as we're going to be short on count, just a small amount later. In this pack, I often will pull two of those tormentors there. You can opt to skip those if you want to. It's kind of hit or miss, right? The thing with those tormented souls is if you don't have your teammates ready to kick and help you group them, and you end up pulling one, and then a Gnarled walks in. They have a Gnarled in this pull. And again, while that's actually kind of fine, right? Even a Gnarled plus one of these Soul Renders plus a Defender isn't that dangerous. You'd still rather avoid it. It's unnecessary. Alright, so now we're just going to be finishing up this pack. Again, when stuff gets low, we're going to start to chain it. One thing you want to be a little bit careful of is when you kind of go to pull the boss will kind of knock you away. So you want to make sure none of your teammates are in a position where they're going to get knocked into stuff that's going to pull, right? And then as soon as we kind of clean this up, we're going to want to start our pull here. And we're going to do some stuff. We want to pull onto boss here. Pulling on a boss is always really nice. Gives you your team funnel, helps speed up the boss fight. And also allows you to get some count while you're pulling bosses, which can take pulls out of your dungeon. So we're just going to be pulling all of this stuff on the boss here. This Ritual Hexer, those two warriors, all these skirmishers. Now, like I said, the skirmishers are kind of bad mobs in this dungeon. They can hurt your team a lot. However, the way that this ends up working, by the time we kind of get the mobs over there, a lot of these shields are going to be dead. And also the only damage the first, 30 seconds or so of the boss fight is to you. So it's pretty unscary to your team. Now, my team's going to start pinging me because they want me to pull. But I'm saying, hey, I'm waiting for my cooldowns here. I'm waiting for Bark Skin. I want to get closer to Incarn here. I don't want to pull naked because they do that cast right away. So you see here, Incarn's about to come up. Bam, 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 thank you, ma'am. ISI and Bark just for safety. That gives me 2 my Incarn. Now I know I'm safe, I have Incarn, and we're going to blast. My whole team is absolutely cranking this boss. You can see how fast his health is depleting here. This is not without lust or anything, right? We are just absolutely blasting this in our cooldowns. I have Incarn, I'm getting funnel. Our Holy DH is getting funnel. Our TDH is getting funnel here. Now, there's 2 key strategies on this boss. You see that I tanked the boss in this position. That's because it allows those 2 ghosts that spawn to my left or right to be popped right away. You can see that was how quick that was. And it kind of gives you an obvious first 2 pops. And then those guys coming in later can be popped. The other thing as well is I'm kind of past it now, but you see that I pulled a lot of those reanimated warriors onto this boss. They kind of ideally, you actually don't want to CC them. You don't want to stop their cast. Let them come back alive. That way you keep having funnel for the boss. I kind of forgot to tell people before this key though, so our Evoker, I think with like the Eruption and then he blows his second set, he just, pops them. Not a big deal. It's a little bit less optimal. And again, my fault for not telling people, reminding them before the key here. Now this part we want to burn down the shield. This is a good opportunity to use Heart of the Wild Druids. I use the beam there and the Heart of the Wild Pharaoh Frenzy. Just gets a lot of single target damage to help burst down that shield. Bloody, bloody, blah. Killing the shield. And then we're just going to rinse repeat. As soon as this ends, we're going to want to take the boss back to its position. We know it's casting Drain Soul kind of right after this ends from experience, so we don't really even try to move right away. Just want to make sure that we're stood there to have our defenses ready to not die to that. And then we just slowly walk it back. Rinse repeat. Again, going to fast forward through the rest of this boss fight. You guys know how this works. There's actually one interesting note here actually at the end of the boss fight as well. Because of your persistence talents, you can actually leave Bear Forest sometimes. I do it just to root that mob. Just gives us a little bit more space here. We don't want to pop these since, the boss fight's almost over to save the damage. It's not necessary to do that. You do lose your Iron Fur by popping into human form. But on some bosses or some situations, it can be kind of convenient to just pop out and root some stuff. Now we are onto this pack. Pretty simple. I think like a lot of groups actually do some stuff to skip all this. These mobs and packs aren't very efficient, right? These are going to be your least percent efficient packs in the dungeon. They're like 4 to 5% each, basically. Now here in my head, I'm thinking about the count. Normally I like to be at about 90 at this point, but because we pulled those extra bats, I was like, not sure where we're at. So we need to pull 2 bats here. By default, there's only 2 bats in my route. Here I've grabbed a 3rd, and I thought that was going to be fine with the masks that I ended up skipping at the beginning of the dungeon, but I was wrong by about 1 bat. We were going to need to have 4. So again, it doesn't end up being a big a deal. We end up just kind of pulling a bat into boss here. Again, you can see I'm doing that same Soulstorm tech. Soulstorms come out. They come out in the front behind. I move to the left. I pull stuff away. Now my melee are kind of free from these tornadoes. Boss does a shield. Sorry, not boss. Mini boss does a shield, or elite does a shield, whatever you call it. We just walk behind it. Rinse, repeat. You want to pull the stuff off to the side, like you see I have it here. You can see those hand slams are casting as we kind of go by. You want to make sure that you're fighting the pack away from those, so your team doesn't get bonked, because that'll kill them. A lot of times tanks will say things like, oh, well, my team died to this. It's their fault. Like, they shouldn't have stood in that. They should have dodged it. But it's your job as a tank to kind of set your team up for success and make it as easy for them to play their game as possible here, right? Again, we just clean this up. We're like, yeah, this last mob is like 1.5% or something. And so we know we're going to be just short. I thought about grabbing that bat, but I was like, you know what, never mind. I don't want to, grab it and have it cast and have people be behind, and then some people go up the stairs and get killed. So I'm just like, whatever. We have 6 minutes. With Lust, this is about a 3-ish minute, boss fight. Let's just kill this, and then I'll go grab a bat later. This mob is actually randomly really scary, especially because, like, if you have a Mistweaver in a group like mine who, a lot of healers this season, or, this expansion, rather, really like to be in combat to do their most healing. They get some healing from damage or some resources from their damage abilities. And so it can actually be kind of scary when you're walking up the stairs because your healer doesn't have anything to hit and they're walking, not healing. We're cringing because it's taking me a while to find a bat that's in range. Oopsie doodles, whatever. DK grips it. We go. We lose aggro, we just turn around, taunt it, whatever. Now, this boss has some really cool tech you can do as a bear. The general strategy is you kind of want to keep the boss still, and you want to keep him around these totems that spawn. So here we're not going to wild charge to the boss, because we want to save wild charge here for a second. We're going to bark skin. We're going to walk just far enough out where we're putting this aside. As soon as he knocks, we charge. That way, the boss isn't really moving, but these pools are still out of range of my DPS players. You'll see he's going to do this Crushed Soul here. My DPS are goated, and so they are keeping these totems nice and stacked, right? They're not all spread out of the rooms we can cleave. And again, our goal here as the tank is we want to keep the boss in the middle of these totems so they can cleave onto the boss, get some damage. Again, you can see the same principle. We walk out, press the defensive. As soon as the knock happens, we charge, negating the knock, and just running right back in. That way the boss doesn't move. You want to kind of be fighting the boss towards the front of the room here. That way, when the downstairs phase is over, your team doesn't have to run as far to do damage. It's not going to make or break your key, but it's a small optimization that helps your teammates do damage and help time your key a little bit faster. Again, it doesn't really matter which direction we go in with these. I tend to like to go like pure left, pure right, but the way that the totems kind of ended up, there was not really going to be a lot of space there, so I just opted to go in the back. And again, you'll see here that we're getting knocked back. I tell my team I'm got the right side of the room here. So I roar here, and then I would Tiger Dash, but it's on cooldown. Whoopsies. Monk gets that. I get the first one. I'm going to just blow this here. We have a DK, so he can kind of easily basically soul this whole thing if he wanted to. We go up here. We're going to drop our beam. We're going to Feral Frenzy. Then we're going to press Incarn to save a global and blast here. There used to be a strategy where you could save one of those ghosts for later to extend your buff. They just got rid of that and just gave you a longer buff as is. And then we just blast the boss. Yeah, you can see this guy's getting shredded. One advantage of Bear over some of the other meta tanks is that in these burst windows, we are very, very competitive with even the DPS at times. Which means that, anything like this, or like second boss in Nexus Point, anything that has a damage amp, or any pure single target burns, we're actually going to be a very, very powerful tank for those situations and helping our key. I mean, you can see how low we got. And obviously my DPS are blasters, but the Bear is part of that. And again here, we just kind of use that trinket. It actually does kind of a decent amount of damage to those totems, as you can see when I press it. And, gives us a shield or whatever for the Spirit Breaker mechanic. Spirit Breaker mechanic isn't very dangerous, even on this 20. Like, I think there's one here I think it's going to be this one. I might not even press anything for. I just, pre-frenzied it. As a bear, we have, a bajillion health. So, we're not very likely to get one-shot by a lot of these tank busters here. Okay, I actually had no ISI that one. And again, I have nothing else to use it for. The dungeon was over. Why not? We almost actually won phase of this. Not quite. We do get sent down here again. Same principle here. We roar. We Tiger's Dash. We help CC. Blam, blam, blam. We run up the stairs, and we kill the boss. Feral Frenzy. Shifting to Bear. Kill it. There we go. GG, guys. Alright, let me know. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. I'm always happy to answer. You can also reach me on Discord, as well as the Dream Grove Druid Discord. I'm always pretty active in that Guardian section. Feel free to ask any questions there, and me or some other smart bears will answer you. Other than that, guys, hope you have a great day and happy keying.